is the multiplying rational expressions practice sheet. So it says, if the problem contains monomials only, multiply them together, then simplify. If it's binomials and trinomials multiplying together, you factor everything you can first, then simplify. So if we look at example 1, these are all monomials. So what we're doing is we're basically just following the rules of multiplying fractions. Okay, so we're going to multiply top times top, and we're going to multiply bottom times bottom. So I'm going to write on this. So I'm going to do top times top. So 10 doesn't have anything to multiply times, so I'm just going to put a 10. Then I've got a to the third times a squared, and we know that that's a to the fifth. Sorry, my writing's pretty bad. Let me get a little closer. B times b is b squared. D doesn't have anything to multiply, and neither does c squared, so they're just going to follow in, and it's going to be c squared d. All right, now I'm going to multiply the bottom. So I'm going to do 5 times 4 is 20. And then a doesn't multiply times any. Actually, none of the variables multiply times, none of them combine. So I'm just going to rewrite it as ab squared cd. All right, now what we're going to do after that is, let me change my color here. I'm going to change it to blue. All right, so what we're going to do now is I think of it as canceling out. Okay, so remember that anytime you have a number over itself, like 2 over 2, that equals 1, right? Same thing goes with variables. If you have a over a, that equals 1. Because whatever a might stand for, if you have that number over itself, it's going to cancel out to be 1. So let me erase that real quick. All right, so I'm going to start off with my numbers. So the 10 and 20, that's a fraction that can be simplified to be 1 over 2. So I'm going to mark out the 10, change it to a 1, mark out the 20, change it to a 2. Now, I have a to the fifth over a. So what that means is that there are 5 a's on top and there's 1 a on the bottom. So if I had a over a, one pair of the a's would cancel out because they would make 1. So I would be left with 4 a's on the top. So what I'm going to do is, instead of writing this out, I'm basically just subtracting my exponents. Remember that from our exponent rules. 5 minus 1 is 4, and wherever the bigger number was, that's where that one's going to be at. So I'm going to mark out this a, and I'm going to change this 5 to a 4. Now my b's. Well, I have b squared over b squared. Those are going to completely cancel out, so those are gone. Now I've got c squared over c. So the 1c on the bottom is going to cancel out with one of the c's up top, and I'm going to be left with the c to the 1. And then I have d over d, and that's going to cancel out. So now I just write my final answer. So I was left with, and I don't have to write that 1 up top, I was left with a to the fourth. My b's canceled out. I'm left with a c over 2. And that's it. Everything else on the bottom canceled out. So my final answer is a to the fourth c over 2. All right. Now the second example has binomials and trinomials, and this does make it more difficult. But look at what it says. It says to factor everything you can first, then simplify. So we have to take each numerator and denominator and look at it and say, okay, can I factor out a GCF? And then can I factor it even further? All right. So first thing I'm going to do is look at all of them, and I'm going to say, can I take a GCF out of any of these? And I see that this right here does have a GCF. I can pull out a 2 from that. So I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to pull the 2 out, and I'm going to be left with x plus 4 on the inside. So you should remember doing this earlier and even a little bit last year, I believe. But we did do factoring and review that before we went out on the extended closure. All right, nothing else has a GCF. So I'm going to just mark this out because it's gone now. We have changed it to be 2x plus 4. All right, so now I've got to look at everything else. Well, I see this x squared minus 16. So if I was factoring that, I would look for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 16 and add to give me 0. Well, that would be positive 4 and negative 4. So my two factors for x squared minus 16 would be x plus 4 and x minus 4. So now I can cancel this out. It's gone because we have rewritten it to be x plus 4, x minus 4. Now, x plus 4, that one can't factor in any way. So we move on to the next one. X squared plus 8x plus 16. So to factor this, we're doing that same method we did of the one up top. Two numbers that multiply to give us 16 and add to give us 8. That would be positive 4 and positive 4. I'm just going to do a different color on this one just because it's getting kind of close together there. So I'll use purple. All right, so we're going to rewrite this to be x plus 4, x plus 4. All right, now everything is multiplying. So we could rewrite this as all of these factors, but we're going to do basically the same idea as what we do when we think about simplifying fractions. If you have the same factor on top and on bottom, you can cancel out those two factors. So I look at what I've got on top and bottom, and I see that I've got this x plus 4 here and this x plus 4 here. Well, whatever x is, it's going to make those two cancel out because it would equal 1. So I can cross out these because they are canceling each other out. Now I see I have an x plus 4 on bottom and another x plus 4 on top, so I can cancel out these x plus 4s. I don't have an x minus 4 that I can cancel out, and I don't have anything on bottom now that'll cancel out, so I'm down to my final answer. My final answer is x minus 4 over 2x plus 4. All right, so let's do at least one or two more examples. Let's look at number 4. So again, this is monomials only, so I'm going to multiply across, and I get 6x to the third y squared over 12x squared y squared. Now I look at my fraction first, 6 over 12. That'll simplify to be 1 over 2. If you don't remember how to simplify fractions, remember you can use Desmos scientific calculator and type them in, and it'll do it for you. All right, now I've got 2 x's on bottom and 3 x's on top. So these 2 x's on the bottom are going to cancel out with 2 of the ones on top, so I'm just going to be left with a single x on top. And then the y squareds both cancel out. So my final answer is what's left, x over 2. And I'm done. All right, let's do a harder one. So let's come all the way down here and look at number 20. I may even have to pull out the calculator for this one. All right, so we're still going to do all of the same things that we did before. First thing, if you look back at the front, it said you always factor numerators and denominators first. So first thing I'm going to do is check to see if anything has any GCFs. And I immediately see that these two down here have GCFs that we can factor out. So the GCF of the first one, the 12y squared minus 4y, I can pull out a 4 because 12 and 4 both divide by 4. And I can also pull out a y. All right. So what's left, 4y times 3y would give me 12y squared. 4y times negative 1 would give me negative 4y. All right, now I'm going to look at the next one. And both those numbers divide by 5. And then we can also pull out the smallest exponent of the variable, so y squared. So 5y squared times 3y would give me 15y to the third. And then 5y squared times negative 4 would give me negative 20y squared. So I have changed my two denominators so that they now are in their simplest form. So now I check to see if anything that's left will simplify or will factor. Now I see a y squared, and if I see a y squared trinomial, chances are it's going to factor. So you can either do the slip and slide method, which is the one that I prefer and the one I'm going to use, or you might do guess and check. Either way, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to do the side work and do the slip and slide. So first thing I'm going to do is slide that 3 to the back, and I'll now have y squared minus 7y plus 12. And then I find two numbers that multiply to give me 12 and add to give me negative 7. So I know both numbers have to be negative because it multiplies to give me a positive and adds to give me a negative. So I just got to find those two numbers. Those two numbers are negative 4 and negative 3. So y minus 4 and y minus 3. Now, the final step on slip and slide is you then divide each of those factors by that original a. So I'm going to divide them both by 3. And they're either going to simplify or slide to the front. So this 3 is going to slide to the front because 4/3 won't simplify. So one of my factors is 3y minus 4. And then negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. So my other factor is y minus 1. So I can rewrite this one to be 3y minus 4, y minus 1. All right. So now I am looking to see what will cancel out because there's nothing else that I can factor here. So I see I've got a 3y minus 4 up top and a 3y minus 4 on the bottom. I also see I've got a 3y minus 1 on top and bottom. And that's all that I can cancel out because the y minus 1 is the only thing left on top. So I'm going to put that up top, y minus 1. And on the bottom, I'm going to multiply what I have left. This 4y and 5y squared is going to give me 20y to the third. And that is multiplying rational expressions.